Too many businesses struggle to deliver sustainable business value from their data and AI investments. At InfoSeps, we are experts in unlocking the value that lives within your data to strengthen decisions. We are a global data solutions firm on a mission to bridge the gap between the worlds of business and analytics. We've joined forces with The Rabbit Show to bring you the most cutting-edge data and AI insights.
Hello everyone. So you might be seeing a new face here. So you can think of it as if I have taken over the Ravit show. And today I'm hosting Sharad, who's the CEO and co-founder of Overledge, which is a leading data governance platform that specializes in making your enterprise organization data accessible, trustworthy, and high quality. So I'm super excited because it is this chat is about a topic which I am super passionate about, and there is so much more that I would like to learn from Sharad. He has over 20 years of experience in software and technology industry. He's an expert in data governance, data management, and data analytics, etc. He also holds a postgraduate degree in nuclear engineering from Indian Institute of Technology, Kanpur. So I'm very glad to welcome you on the show, Sharad. I'm really glad that you are able to join us, and thank you so much for taking out your time.
Thank you, Aishwarya. Yeah, it should be a fun chat. I enjoy coming to the Ravi show or wherever it is. It's always a fun discussion, and hopefully the community will get something out of it.
Absolutely. So I'm joining from California. Sharad, I believe you're in Atlanta. I would
Yeah,
love to know where are the other rest of the audience is joining us from. It'll be nice
yes,
to see.
definitely to see, if you can see some, where the people are coming from. So it is
Yeah,
generally
absolutely.
people are from all over the globe.
Yeah, I always find it very fascinating asking people where they're joining in from, and it's pretty diverse. Okay, awesome. So let's get started. And before that, I think some of you have already seen the message that there's a raffle going on. So if you put hashtag Ravit Show in the comments on LinkedIn, you will get to enter the raffle, and one lucky winner will get some gifts. So awesome. Okay. So Sharad, let's start with the discussion that we had. I'm actually curious a little bit about your background. You had mentioned that you've done nuclear engineering, so I'm a little curious about how you moved from nuclear engineering to data analytics space.
Actually, that's a very good question. I was in nuclear engineering. Then it was in 2000 when I did my nuclear engineering, just after Pokhran test in India. So I wanted to kind of work a little bit more and explore a little bit more. So I came out of that and joined computer science kind of industry. Then when I was joining computer science industry, I kind of doing the maintenance management software implementations, and then I found opportunity to work on nuclear power plant, basically the maintenance management software implementation. I said, oh, that is interesting because at least I am have some sort of a nuclear. So I worked for about 7 years in different part of nuclear power plants in US. Different almost you take a power plant in US, I have visited there, right? So
Wow.
and then when I was working there, kind of really realized that what is the next thing, because maintenance management is getting mature. At that time every company have implemented that software, kind of like becoming a routine implementation. I said, what is the next thing, how the maintenance can be matured and use new advanced technology. And data was at that time was coming up quite a bit, about 10 years ago. IoT devices, everybody saying that now the IoT will be able to do the better maintenance management. This is like more about processes. And then I realized it's a good time to go to the data industry. And then I went into the data industry and joined a company named Hortonworks. It's a big data company. It's built basically Yahoo spin-off company. So I joined that company to mostly to learn a little bit as well as to grow and understand that. Once I came out of that Yahoo kind of a spin-off, which is a Hortonworks, it's a data company, and then I realized that, oh, everybody is working, moving all the data into one data platform. So there is a lot more into establish the processes and every area there. So that's why I left Hortonworks and started founding Overledge, and then we started building platform. And at that time, we were thinking that you need a process to manage it.
Yeah.
And ultimately came down that there is a industry exist, not industry exists, but there is a whole processes and methodology do exist in this area, which is called data governance. Just
Right.
like nuclear utilities have a company for process management. So this is also they call data governance there. So this is where I started, and kind of work start more around the data governance space.
So I believe I would like to understand from you, and like maybe for the audience, let's break it down and let's get to like level 100 and try to see if you can help us understand what is data governance, and what have you seen over the past few years on why data governance has proven to be one of the critical concepts for organizations.
So I think that we all know that without data is now everything would be very difficult. Whether it's a chat GPT, which is a new outcome, everything talk about it, or any important new innovation will happen on top of data, right?
Mhm.
So if data is not high quality, data is not trustworthy, data is not accessible to users, nothing can be developed, right? So that is the major problem. This is what the expectations are. Expectations are that data should be of good quality, then I can build something from that. And to get to that point is all around data governance. So data governance basically makes you data wherever it is, and how do you make sure the data is trustworthy, that you can really trust upon it? How can you kind of like access it? How can you kind of do anything around the data? Is those are the processes, is basically around data governance, around the business processes. How do you handle those processes? So that is what the main outcome is. So if you think around it, like trying to explain data governance from the newcomers, like there is a Syria and there is a US, right?
Mhm. Mhm.
If you go to Syria, yes, there is some sort of a security systems are there. There is some sort of a governance is there, but this is a totally governance failure,
Yeah.
right? But if you come to US, there is a whole together, pretty structured. Everything is there. So what US as a country we have achieved is kind of like, okay, the well-defined laws and
Yeah.
processes and policies, and implementation of those well-defined policies and
Yep.
procedures, whatever as a community, as a country, what we have established. So this is called good governance, right? And the failure governance can be that, hey, I have the processes, but nobody look around it.
Yep.
Do whatever everybody is doing is based on their own self-interest. This is where the governance fail, and when the governance fail, the nobody prosper. So data is also is something like that, because data, when the data is getting originated, is it's not originated from at a at somewhere. It is
Mhm.
originating in various applications, and
Right.
these applications are managed by various people, right? And they originate the data based on their processes, their business
Mhm.
outcome. So
Right.
there are hundreds of applications in organization. They're creating the data based on their objective, their processes. And how come we take all the data and create something from it, right? So because a lot of people are involved, a lot of processes are needed in order to make some value out of it. That's why
Yeah.
the well-defined processes are needed, well-defined implementation of those processes are needed. And how do you break down that is the real outcome of the data governance methodologies, which basically, how do this is a complex idea, that how do you break down that's what we call it, the processes
Mhm.
and the methodologies, and that basically create the data governance.
Totally. Yeah, totally. That completely makes sense. So, Sharad, as you were mentioning, right? Like data governance is not a new concept. It's been present since like 1980s. And at that point in time, it was mostly catering to healthcare, insurance, or financial organizations, which were supposed to be capturing such PII information. But in the last couple of decades, I would say that the shift has gone from these sensitive data or like PII that's being collected by healthcare, insurance, financial organizations, to companies and like e-commerce websites, social media, and a bunch of other electronic media that is collecting data, that is analyzing your data, that is using that data to create ads and whatnot. So when you are dealing with vast amounts of data and the applications of AI, how relevant has it, how has the relevance of data governance changed, and like what are the changes in the principles of data governance that has happened when you are accounting for AI along with it?
Yeah, so I think that any level of, so just like say for example we write research papers, right? A lot of academies. So when we write the research paper, we have to always write sources. You know where we get this information from. So you always have to have sources, and then you have to legitimately prove that what the analysis you have done for whatever the research paper it is, right? So sources and its legitimacy of what the analysis have done, and then what the terms really means. So you have done, okay, you are writing a research paper about a some chemical term. You have to really define what that chemical term is. So generally there are foundational three principles are there. One is the source of the data is authentic, genuine, right? That is what we generally call it lineage, right? So that is the one part which need to be there. The second part, the analysis, the because human is doing analysis or machines are doing analysis, is the analysis interpreted correctly or not, right? And then third part is the business terms which is mentioned there is accurately mentioned. So this industry is there because based on these foundation three fundamental principles, a lot of companies in like financial, there is a laws in place in the books right now, which is like banking industry after 2008 financial crisis. The lot of laws has been written so that bank doesn't do any mischievous thing, and then ultimately they can't play with the books, right? So they have written the laws so that whatever the reporting is happening through the of banks, it's accurate, so that when
Right.
the bank is showcasing their the numbers, it's accurate. So they have defined these processes for any, and like, so if you think around it, the report is a kind of a analytical outcome of a lot of data which is gathering, right? So ultimately you say, hey, the balance sheet is kind of an outcome. So for example, any balance sheet come out of a company, it need to be accurate, it need to be authentic. You say there is $1 billion revenue, it cannot be zero point 0.9 billion, or it cannot be 1.1 billion.
Yeah.
It cannot, there is no scope for miscalculation. So if you have a miscalculation, the CEO or somebody is going to go to the jail because of that, because they have incorrectly reported the results. So
Right.
those foundational principles are there within the laws, and those principles have been adopted in many companies, organization, in the financial sector, PII sector, and mostly in the area where the laws was there. But people are saying, hey, this is the same problem I'm having even to address my inventory report, although there is no law is saying that, but I want to make sure my inventory calculation, my forecasting model, all are authentic and genuine. So
Right.
when people want to do that, say, hey, why not apply the same principles which we are applying, the banking records which we are applying for financial statements? Let's apply the same foundational principles of data governance into these areas as well, wherever the more trust is needed. So AI is another area where the tremendous amount of trust is needed, where the data come from, where it goes. So let's apply the same principle here as well, and use the data governance to create the better outcome. So every industry is realizing that, and they are working,
Yeah.
they're investing in the data governance space.
Totally, totally. And like as somebody who's an advocate for responsible AI, I see like as data governance as one of the critical pillars of responsible AI, because that's something that helps us ensure the ethical use of the data set, the ethical use of the use case itself, right? So, what are your thoughts about that?
That exactly comes down to, let's say, the chat gpt, right, which is a new AI solution which come out in the market. But is it 100% ethical? Answer is absolutely no. The reason for that is, before that, any AI solution, like for example, Google have created a lot of AI. When you are writing, it gives you suggestions. So mostly is this AI solution is being built to assist human. If you are assisting human, there is no problem in that area, like even Grammarly and all are these are AI softwares and AI tools basically, which
Right.
is assisting human. Human is always a deciding factor. But when ChatGPT started writing the outcome, and if you ask that, hey, is Coke better or Pepsi, it will come up with some results, right?
Right. Yeah.
So when they are making the decision for you, and Coke and Pepsi is easier, but if you are making a decision of thousands of element, and you're coming up with the top 10 or top 5 based on their own analysis,
Yeah.
they need to present that what is the how did they come up with this analysis, and where the data come for the
Right.
analysis. If you cannot present that, that means that the analysis which has been presented is not authentic, is not genuine.
Mhm.
And that basically fails the first test of data governance. When so whatever the policies you write, you have to go where the data come from. How did you make the decision? They
Yeah.
have to really lay out the foundation. If you cannot lay out that foundation, that fails the test. And that is where the responsible AI is very important. That how are we leveraging it? Is it
Yeah.
making a decision, or is it making only assisting human?
Yeah.
So Autopilot, for example, is a phenomenal AI tool, but can
Mhm.
it do autonomous driving?
Yeah.
At that time, a lot of checks and balances will going to come,
Yeah.
because at that time there is no human is in charge, and ultimately the machine is in charge.
Yeah.
And when machine is in charge, then when it make the mistake, then who is responsible for it? Is it the company, or is it the human who is driving? So there are a lot of things which need to be
Yeah.
figured out in this area.
Yeah, totally. And like to your point, right? Like there have been a lot of discussions about why it's an issue, because when you are looking at an autopilot driving a car, the object of use is the car. The technology is provided by the company, and the user is the human himself. But there's like so many components that plays as external factors, like who is responsible if there is an accident, who's responsible for the decisions that the car is making at a like at say a unforeseen situation, how does the insurance get handled, right? So there are so many external factors that sort of navigates in this situation, that it's very difficult to put a technology like that upfront for people to use.
Definitely, and this is something we have to, as a community, as a country, we have to lay out the foundational framework
Framework,
for it.
exactly. Yeah,
And
absolutely.
what is those foundational frameworks are, like as a country, and the laws need to be written. But I think even the senators and also waiting that how this industry evolve, because they don't know. So
Yeah.
nobody knows right now that how this industry is going to evolve. That's why everybody's kind of wait and watch situation
Yeah,
right
I
now.
totally agree. And as you were mentioning, Sharad, right, like one of the major challenges for people to even incorporate a data governance framework is not having the literacy for it, right? Like not understanding how the framework would work, how what are the personas who are going to be involved, etc. Those are like some of the basic challenges that we see. So what are the other challenges that you have seen over the past few years when you are trying to like talk to companies and have them implement data governance in their framework? What are the challenges that you have seen?
So major challenges is literally about the data literacy. People do not understand that what really this data is going to do for them.
Right.
And as they are not able to understand the data, the mostly from the business side is they understand the data can be very powerful, but they do not know how to really get to use for them the data, right? So that is the literacy of this is unknown. A lot of unknowns are there, and because of that, people are kind of like hesitant about moving towards any AI based solution, etc., right? So
Yeah.
this is the literacy is number one problem. And the second problem is the quality of the data.
Yeah.
Everywhere you see the data sits, most of the time applications have gathered the tremendous tons of data across the system, whether it's the social media systems, or mostly the enterprises have a lot of applications.
Yeah.
uh, these data are being developed because the tool has not been implemented the way they want to. Like for example, I came from nuclear utilities.
Yeah.
So we have changed it. Even every year the process is used to change, but the software is only the same, but the same field is being used by one process, and the same field has been used by another process, right?
Yeah.
So this is where I think there's a lot of challenges are there. Is this a failure code, or this is a failure system? So these are the very I would say that fundamentally problems with the data right now
Yeah.
is that understanding of each and every attribute level. So it's understanding at the high level as well as at the attribute level, the smallest to smaller dimension of the data, that is it the right and accurate information. That is where the most challenges are. That how do we understand each and every attribute of data? Is it really telling me this particular KPI or metrics or individual attribute? So that is where the most of the challenges are. I would say that, like, understanding the foundational element of the data. How do you understand that, and how do we make sure that everybody in the organization understand that?
Yeah.
Yeah, these are the attributes of the data element
Yeah.
which need to be communicated, collaborated, and then build something on top of that.
Yeah. 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 Totally. And so Sharad, like when you're interacting with all of these organizations, what are some of the key considerations that you suggest for the organizations to keep in mind when they are trying to design and implement these data governance frameworks on their side?
Yeah, so most of the time, I ran a survey that how many people are is who is in charge of data governance, right? So is it the business people in charge, or the compliance people in charge, or the technology people in charge?
Yeah.
So my survey said that around 50% people time the business is in charge, about 25% times
Hmm.
the compliance is in charge, 25% times, which is the IT is in charge, right? So the
Yeah.
first thing is that if you divide the business, generally there are three kind of users in the data field, which
Hmm.
is like one is which is working with the data, like the IT people, the data scientist, data engineer.
Yeah.
Those are the people who know how to write language, who know how to manipulate the data, but they really don't know what it really means. So they need to collaborate with business people to understand that how are they using it and what they can get out of it. It's a lot of data analysis, and data AI is a collaborative effort between the data scientist and the business, because business need to provide the details of every.
Details.
Say
Yeah.
for example, marketing department, they need to know that what this lead amount is, what this lead number ratio is. There are so many ratios, so many
Yeah.
information is available. The marketing, the VPs or marketing directors are the one who knows what is going on there. But
Yes.
the analysis work need to be done by data scientists or data
Yeah.
engineers, right?
Yeah.
So the first challenge is and basically what we need to adopt is create a framework where all parties are involved, right? So this is a framework we have designed it, that all parties are involved, and create committees of those parties.
Hmm.
So mostly by domain in the sense that there have to be a specific set of data. You can say this is a marketing data,
Hmm.
and in the marketing data you set up a marketing domain, and in that data let's bring some business people, let's bring some IT people, let's bring some compliance people,
Hmm.
bring them together and create a committee of them, and then they become a decision body for that data.
Right.
So whenever there is any confusion comes, they write the policies around that data, that how it should need to be accessed, who can access it. So they need to write the policy about access management of it
Hmm.
is. They need
Yeah.
to write the policy about its literacy of it, like who's going to understand, how it is going to understand, and the quality of the data. So they need to write the policy and the implementation of the policy.
Yeah.
So I know it's going a little bit detailed, but this is how you need to implement it. It's a
Yeah.
very it's a very it's a process which you have to follow
Right.
to
Yeah.
implement data governance at the lowest level.
Yeah, so you've sort of like broken it down to personas who will be sort of the stakeholders for managing the framework in the organization. And then we need to have some like techniques or processes in place that sort of holds as the backbone of how do you want to manage the data governance framework. And obviously, you need some kind of like toolkit that helps you build that end to end, right?
Yes, exactly.
Totally. And when you're like in your opinion, and I see there are a few questions about the same as well on the chat. Where do you see in the next few years, like you are seeing a bunch of generative AI toolkits coming out there right now. You have seen how we have moved into adopting AI technology more and more over the years, where it has become like part of our lives. Each and every piece of gadget that we hold in our hands these days is using some form of machine learning or like artificial intelligence in it. So in the next few years, like what is your vision on how data governance would change or be adopted, and what are the differences that you think needs to be done even in the data governance space as in when we are evolving with these technology?
So, as a data governance, as we are, because a data governance platform, we use internally AI quite a bit, because to identify all the PII information, right? That is where we use quite a bit. Then we started using the generative AI to write descriptions of the data, etc. So those are the AI we are using internally to facilitate the data governance frameworks, right? So that
Right.
is the one part of it is. But as companies who are using data to write their own AI systems,
Mm-hmm.
right? If the AI systems, there are two, I can still very easily differentiate between two areas. One
Mm-hmm.
is human assistance,
Mm-hmm.
like ChatGPT. If they are using for human assistance, then there are not many issues of data governance in general,
Mm-hmm.
because ultimately these are the tools which is helping human to do their work better, and
Mm-hmm.
ultimately human is in charge. But
Right.
when the AI is going to make decisions on behalf of human,
Mm-hmm.
this is where the issues of governance comes quite a bit at the
Yeah.
larger level.
Yeah.
Because when the decision is made by a machine, at that time there is a lot of issues are coming into the place, because our whole framework, as our whole community and whole country ecosystem has been designed and worked upon, that how human is in charge. Human goes to jail. Human is all about human. You can't send
Right.
machine to jail, right?
Right. Right.
So you still, ultimately it's going to be the human responsibility
Yeah.
would be there.
Yeah.
If and this is where the most of the challenges is going to come
Come. Yeah.
up, that how the new system, the new AI models, the new things which is going to come up, if they are assisting human, they will be super successful. If they're
Right.
not assisting human, and they will be out of a lot of things will be in lawsuits. uh, I don't think the court will move that fast to decide it. It will take another 5-10 years for them to kind of come up with frameworks
Yeah.
for laws and policy. And that's
Yeah.
where I think next 5 year you will see a lot of dilemma like that.
Makes.
That some
Yeah.
tools will come which will making decision, and then the lawsuits will come immediately after that to kind of counter it. And but that's what I see, the little chaos for next 5 to 10 years, and then maybe 5 to 7 years we will see some chaos, and then some framework of laws will come in place, because of obviously the demand will create, and then some sort of this this will clutter out, and then come some sort of a framework will come out of that. That's my thinking process. May take 5 years, may take 10 years, but it will not take more than 10 years otherwise, because this industry is evolving so fast that within
Yeah.
10 years people have to figure out that
Yeah.
how to take care of this AI
Yeah,
systems.
totally. Totally. That's very well articulated. Like, thank you so much for, like putting it out on what would be the challenges that we will see on the way. And I think, like, before getting on to the questions, I wanted to also understand, like, Overledge has been in the data governance space for like close to a decade. So what are the contributions and like development that Overledge has done for like data governance solutions, and what are the like company's key priorities that you have seen in the area?
Yeah, so we are very customer focused basically. So we work for customers who are implementing data governance, right? So we build the products and tools what customers are asking, right? So this is our kind of guru mantra has been always that how do we build our product and methodology. So what we
Right.
are hearing from the customer is what they want is quickness in the implementation of the data
Mhm.
governance policies.
Right.
uh, what they want is that, hey, I know it's difficult, because I try to explain you, it's very
Yeah.
difficult to implement and roll out data governance. What they want is that, hey, can you simplify us for us? Can you
Hmm.
simplify these data governance policies for us? So what the customers are asking is, hey, is there out of box for policies which
Fun.
work for everyone, right?
Yeah.
So this is the demand from customer. Of course, there are, it's very difficult to create out of box so that everybody can follow it. It's not that easy,
Yeah.
but this is the demand of the customers are most of the time.
Sure.
And this is what we are working towards, what our customers asking, can we create at least by industry segment, by banking, by healthcare,
Yeah.
by government utility sector, can we simplify the data governance for a specific area, and then give them the products and solution they are looking for. So that's where like our drive is coming from, that how should we simplify for
Simplify it.
customers.
Yeah, makes sense. And Sharad, I think I'm gonna get into some of the questions here, and this sort of like falls through with what we were discussing earlier, right? Like data literacy. So before like having companies adopt data governance, we have to help them understand what data really means. Like, what are the capabilities, what are the uses of the data, what is the return on investment that they will get when they're investing in this data set. So, what are your thoughts on the best practices to help companies go through a data literacy program before getting into data governance?
I think so. So data literacy is number one thing before you implement data governance. I agree, and it's a part of the governance. So if you think about it, Syria versus US. Syria, what the problem is missing is education, right?
Right.
If I don't think that they have a very good education system in the country, and if you get any prosper country, whether it's in Norway or Finland, any country you go, which is as prosper as it is, what you will find is that education is number one instrument,
Mhm.
right? Not the security, not that much. Of course, security is needed, but the literacy is kind of education. Again, think of data governance as you are building a new country ecosystem. You are building a new ecosystem which will come out of data, and data
Mhm.
is a foundational pillar. So data literacy is the foundation for the data governance, for the overall governance, right? Because if the literacy is not there, then if the education is not there, then they can't do anything.
Yeah.
And any data products cannot be developed by one data scientist,
Yeah,
right?
absolutely.
It cannot be developed by one data engineer. It's a collaborative effort between a lot of people who's using the data. They're giving them the inputs about it. So that's why the data literacy is the most foundation for the data governance program. And then data literacy, we generally consider a three foundation: data literacy, data access, and data quality,
Mm-hmm.
for the data governance. And
Yeah.
literacy is number one. And there is a way to to promote the data literacy is creating the data catalog. We generally create data catalogs to give access to everyone to the data, so they can learn
Yeah.
about the data, they can
Yeah.
search about the data. So that is like one of the tool which we have established.
Yeah.
But also like creating a lot of sessions about it, telling about what the data you owns, what
Yeah.
data you have, what data you don't have, how do you access it, how do you create products out of it. So there's a lot of data literacy exercises need to be in place.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. Makes sense. And so we have another question, and it's more of understanding from like the ethicality of the data. So this, I don't know what the person's name is; it doesn't show up. But they're asking if, from like the ethicality of data perspective, does that need more acknowledgement?
I don't know whether I got the question right, but in my understanding is the data need to be like, if you are using my data as a PII information, do I need to acknowledge that you are using my data? Is this, I think this is what they mean by it, right? So if for example, if I give my data to Facebook or Google,
Mm-hmm.
do they have uh, do they have to acknowledge that my data is used, or
Mm-hmm.
do they have the right to use my data, right? So that may be the I'm understanding. Again, there are laws in place right now which is generally considered as a GDPR, which is a one of the main foundational law which was written in Europe. And a lot of lot of countries have started adopting this law, that what can you use the PII data, which is the personally identified data of the customers, or
Mm-hmm.
what cannot you use for. And you have to literally explain them, and if they ask you to delete it, you have to delete it. So these are the laws are there in Europe as well as in California. Other US states have not adopted this law, neither federal have created a law yet. But soon you would expect something very similar to GDPR range, which kind of talks about the data, and it's kind of like its use of the data, the PII data, like personally my data basically stand from, which is the end
Mm-hmm.
user's data point of view.
Okay, makes sense. Yeah. So, so Scott says that it's a great overview that you've provided him. Awesome. So let's get on to the next question. So, what do we have here? So this another LinkedIn user. I'm not sure what your name is. I'm really sorry, for some reason it doesn't show up. But they're asking, how is this data governance different from SOX compliance? Generally, finance people know SOX. I heard Archer is one of the governance tools.
Yeah. So data. So SOX compliance is I would say that the data governance objective is to comply with all the laws of the data. So SOX is one of the law, right? There are the PCPS 239 is another law. There is a the GDPR is another law. So there are multiple laws which need to be kind of enforced, and SOX is one of the law. So if you see around it, most of the time the financial balance sheet which comes out of the companies, any statement which is the public companies, if you report anything about the financial statement, that needs to be authentic, genuine. It need to go to all three principles of the data governance, which is like where the data come from. Is obviously the all the statements of this one come from the ledger. Is this the all the calculation has been accurate or not? And all the terms which you define, the revenues, etc., are properly defined,
Yeah.
right? So those are the three foundational principles of the data governance, which SOX compliance also tells you that about. But SOX compliance only talks about the balance sheet, right? It doesn't talk about the PII data, but the
Yeah.
GDPR talks about the PII data. So data governance talks about all the data. That's the
Got it.
difference.
Got it. Got
Yeah.
it. Makes sense. Totally. Okay. So let's move on to what we have next. Okay. Booble Ganeshan has a question, and they're saying that I have been working with Colibra for our data governance effort. Is there any other tool that's better right now in the market that they should check out?
Overledge. So we are directly compete with Colibra and
Yeah,
pretty good. So if you are not happy with them, definitely come to Overledge.
totally.
And thank you for asking this question. Yeah.
Thank you. Okay, so let's see. What do we have more? Okay, so let's see what Aaron has to say. Aaron says, do you think that anything like that would, what we call normal as being the same when the smoke clears? I'm not really sure what your question is, Aaron.
I am not able to get as well.
Yeah, let's
I think
probably.
what he's asking is that anything like that, what called normal when the smoke clears, is like when all this the laws and regulation will come, what will happen, something like that. And
Aaron, if you don't mind, can you rephrase your question so we can get to it? Thank you. In the meantime, we'll move on to the next one. So, Adrian asks, what do you think we can do today, even if we don't use AI yet, that much to prepare for the new adoption era?
I think that's a very good question. I think that everybody should think about it. Is that first, before you start adopting AI, first you need to adopt data governance principles. Start start creating the data catalog. Start putting all the information there, so that when the AI revolution start and then you start using it, you don't have to do you're not left behind, in the sense that your all the data is ready. So I generally sometimes I consider as a kitchen, right? If you are working in your own kitchen, it's very easy. But if you want other people to come to use your kitchen, you have to think about it differently. That because now where the everything is, you have to nicely put the labels to it, whether it's a sugar or whether it's a salt. Otherwise, people can put different things. You individually know whether it's a salt or sugar, but the other person who is going to work will be very difficult for them. So that labeling is needed. So this is what we call it cataloging. So because right now the data is used by application people, they know what they're doing, and when you're giving to other people to use, that's why the labeling and putting the right tag about the data is very important. So that is the one thing you must start before you use it, and that's one of the things with building the data catalog and putting
Yeah,
this is needed before you start AI.
totally. Okay, so we'll probably go over maybe a couple of more questions. So Bhagya Subrayan asks, how do you think users and developers of AI technologies can consciously play a role in data governance?
So I think they play a very important role in the data governance, because when they write the model, they first write that what the model does and how it does. So that is the one part of the data governance. But if they are producer of the data, they must put the information into that. So generally in the data governance, we generally consider three roles. One is the data owners are the one who is provide the who owns the data from the business perspective. Second is the data stewards, which is generally maintain the data. the about the information. And the third is the data custodian, who basically maintain the IT part of the data, where the data come from. They, like most of them, they're technical users.
Mm-hmm.
So the developers of the AI technology, which is consuming the data, right, most of the time, because they're consuming the data and building their model further. So because they are building something, so they need to document, they need to put together what they are building and every part of this. So they are the key component of they can be the data steward for that, or they can be the data consumer for the raw data. So they are the key player of the data governance journey overall.
Got it. Got it. Um, okay. So Aaron is mentioning something, but I'm trying to understand. So Aaron is saying once AI is a normal as force in our daily lives, laws are more or less settled, and an expectation is more or less in place for how it will or won't be used. Are you asking? I believe he's trying to
I think
ask
it's a
how will
comment. I think it's a
governance
comment.
change then?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think that when they're saying dust is settled, I think you already answered the question. I think it's more of like comment. And I think I agree with once the AI is like when the laws are settled, that means the government and everybody as a community, we
Yeah.
agreed upon it. This is how we are
Totally.
going to use the AI. Yeah.
Yeah, I think even right now there is a lot of mist around how like how do you qualitatively assess the good and bad of these technology, because some organizations do have their own like AI ethics framework where they are able to assess the like ethical aspects of the technology, and they're able to say that this is a go or no go. But that's not become a norm otherwise, where people are like organizations are able to assess this upfront if a particular technology is going to have these ethical issues or not. So I think that's what like Aaron is trying to say, that once we have all of these in place, where we have laws in place that are now fueling organizations to make their decisions on how and what to build their AI technology with, that's what we are like looking for in the future.
And
Okay.
this
Yeah.
is the same thing comes down to the two conversation is like, are you assisting human or you are making decision for a human? And
Exactly.
as soon as
Yeah.
if you divide into two areas, and the first area is all good, because whether it's a recommendation engine of Amazon or whether it's a recommendation engine, so any recommendation for human
Yeah.
is been flourishing in their business model.
Yeah.
They are
Yeah. Yeah.
making money, tons of money. But when they started making decision, then you will see a problem.
Yeah, I think the 100% autonomous activity is what the challenge is right now.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, we have a question from Susan. How can we make data governance more appealing to get more people engaged?
That is my objective as well. How to make people adopt to data governance more and more. And again, these are the other exercise which we are doing to make data governance more aware about it, more people knowledgeable. But the one thing what is for sure is that without data governance, it is very difficult for organization to use data for any good use. It is
Yeah,
just almost impossible.
yeah,
So people need to understand that this is a necessary thing which they have to do. The only thing is that do they do it with willingly, with happily, or they know it's a checkbox for me. So this is where we at Overledge is working as well quite a bit, is that we want to make sure that you are working for as a checkbox to make
mhm,
sure that you're complying with the law, but you improve the efficiency, can
yeah,
you improve the productivity of the data engineer. So we
mhm,
also building tools to, as soon as you are improving the efficiency of
mhm.
the data engineer and data scientist, on the other side you are also checking boxes.
Totally. Yeah.
Yeah.
And we have a question from Amit. He's asking, how is Overledge different from other governance tools?
So I think this is a very good question, and I am right person to answer it. So one is the overlay is overall integrated tool. So you have to buy like three tool in the market to come up with your one objective. It's like other tools are the point solutions. Like for example, one is doing the purchasing, another one is doing the invoicing, third one is doing the ledger. But all is very integrated together, right? So overlay is a well integrated tool, and if you compare our our comparison sheet, you will kind of like see that why the integration is needed,
Yeah.
and why the data catalog need to be merged with data governance product as well as with the data access capabilities, data lineage capabilities. Everything is comes in one solution,
Yeah.
and it's a lightweight product. So that's how it is different than others. And generally, when you compare Overledge with other product, you just cannot go with other product. This is the this is one of the key feature what we generally very proud of.
Thanks, Shara. Thanks for that. I'm gonna put this message because I know Tim. I worked with Tim before at IBM. Hi, Tim. So Tim says before any governance and effort in data understanding and data topology is required. I totally agree, and that's what we've been speaking about. That data literacy, data understanding is something that we need to do much before we get into data governance, because that's what will help us understand the nuances that we have in the field. So totally there. Okay, so we have an interesting question from Scott. Will things like data fabric, data mesh, and semantic layers replace the need for data governance? What are
I
your
think
thoughts?
Scott, you know, that data fabric and data mesh, they are saying that you need a fair data governance. So they are talking about data governance in their framework itself. So I don't think they will replace the need for it. And again, these are the methodologies. These are not a product. So
Yes,
even the fabric and mesh both are talking about a governance framework in to start with. So I don't think that they how would they replace this when the framework itself is talking there is a need for it.
totally. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, we have a shout out from someone, and this Adrian is saying we've been working with Overledge for the past few months. Definitely an excellent value and support provided by Overledge team. Is there any plan to add more features related to AI in addition to the existing use?
Definitely, Adrian. We are coming up with a lot more features. That's why I said we keep listening to the customers quite a bit, and definitely we are improving quite. We are adding data quality is 6.1, which is coming in around end of mid of April or end of April, somewhere. Hopefully, mid of April. So that is where we are adding data quality features, and then after that, we soon will be adding a lot more features, and I will keep communicating that to the community.
Awesome. Okay. I think we have gone through all of the comments here. And if you do have anything else to share, Sharad, if you suggest or recommend any reading material that people can go through, or especially because there are people with varied level of expertise. I'm sure there are a bunch of folks who are still very new to data governance and still are exploring the data literacy side of things. So maybe some reading material or resources that will be helpful for them, versus some people who are already like veterans in their industry, and like some more advanced reading material that can help them up their game in their organizations. That will be very helpful if you do have any suggestions.
Thank you, Aishwarya. So I wrote a blog about like overledge.com/what is data governance. I hope, I think Ramit just
Awesome.
shared it.
Yeah.
So what this blog, what we have defined is the benefits of the data governance and how can you use data governance for your defense, which is like checklist, which is like law, complying with the law, to the offense, which is like productivity, which is adoption of the data. And how do you take if you're doing one activity, then how can you use for both sides, right? This is the real advantage what we have kind of trying to design. So for example, if you do classify your data, right, because you have to differentiate between the PII data and non-PII data,
Yeah.
because the laws ask you to do it. But because you have classified it, so that now with the adoption point of view, you can give access to everyone in the organization with the data.
Mhm.
So this is how the what we are trying to do is that doing for defense as well as for offense is the simultaneously, and that is where I'm trying to write it down, that how do you do it and what are the different benefits of the data governance, and then what is, and then why you do it, and then who are the players who are going to do it, basically the data, chief data officer to data owners, steward, custodians, and then how do you do it, the step by steps,
Makes sense.
in the sense that how do you do it. So the whole is it's a pretty long blog. It will take probably 15 minutes to read it,
Mhm.
and but it would take probably 2 years to implement it in the
Awesome.
organization, yeah, fully.
Okay, I think we'll go with one last question. So Bubble Ganeshan asks, I learned that some IDs are planning on integrating Chat GPT to it. I think he's mentioning to your previous comment on Overledge. So is that going to affect the developers in the long run?
Yeah, I think the chat gpt is going to play a very important role in every part of the generative ai basically. So most documentation will be much more easier. People will be able to overall the documentation would be easier to consume. The literacy will be easier across the organization. But again, the data governance, we generally deal with the problem is when you have two conflicting ideas about a specific term. If whatever the document you write, if you call this cup a pen and some people are calling it cup, it is very difficult to communicate. We have to agree that we call this cup, and then only we can communicate, collaborate. But the organization generally use a lot of link, the words and the kpi and the metrics, and especially at the data level, too many things for the same same information has been called multiple things, as well as multiple things called same thing, right? So that is the big problem which we have, which ChatGPT cannot solve it, which is only the where collaboratively we
Yeah,
can solve it.
totally, totally.
Yeah.
So thanks a lot, Sharad. Like, you have also given me a lot of food for thought, and yeah, I will try to also see if you have anything else that you would like to share. Maybe something which is more of like a book resource, or like a more extensive course kind of a thing. Please do that with me or Ravit, and we'll make sure that we'll share it with the audience. But thank you so much for taking out your time. I'm sure it's like closer to lunchtime for you, so I will leave you a little early so you have a few minutes to yourself.
Wonderful. Thank you, Aishwarya. It was really great chatting with you. And
Thank you.
it's a fun. I really enjoyed it. Thank you.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Thanks a lot. And I do believe like there were a few comments on the chat that people wanted to see what Overledge looks like. So maybe we can do that in the next session where you can dig deeper into what the platform does and what the capabilities are.
Yes. And then if you have any question, you can just visit overledge.com and ask for demo, and we can help you to give you the demonstration of the product.
Awesome. Awesome. Thanks a lot, everyone, for tuning in. And just another reminder to put hashtag the Ravit Show in the comments below. That will help you get into a raffle and you will get to win some fun goodies. So, okay. Awesome. Thank you so much. Thanks, Ravit, for letting me hijack your show. And thanks, Sharad, for joining us and giving us a very, very detailed overview and a very strategic plan about data governance.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.